Hello class, welcome back to StudyWeb Academy, where education is without limits. Welcome back to class, and let's continue looking at drug and drug abuse. So we were talking about the commonly abused drugs, and we were looking at their effects. So we're looking at these commonly abused drugs and their effects. So I talked about alcohol, talked about what it's about, and gave you its effects. I told you some of the effects can be long-term, some short-term. So there is slowing down of your nervous system, low, moderate, or low relaxation results, or just some effects that are not good to your health. I also looked at tobacco, which I told you that it's highly addictive, and it's a chemical found in the tobacco products like the cigar, the cigarettes, and the vape products. Okay, then we looked at cannabis, which is also marijuana. Okay, and I told you what this is about, and it's actually a plant, and mostly it's known as bang, so people commonly know it as bang. Okay, and I also talked about its effects, which is there's short-term effects like altered time perception, impaired memory, increased heart rates, and also we have long-term effects such as memory impairment, decreased motivation, and even respiratory issues. And then I looked at the prescription medicines, and these are just the normal medicines. They include the opioids, the medicines you're given to like ease your pain or relieve pain and just make you relax. Okay, so again, if you're addicted to these medicines, it may alter some functions in your body and just cause some negative effects in your body. Then I looked at cocaine. This is a very, very powerful stimulant derived from something we call the coca plant. It's very, very powerful, and it results in increased energy, alertness, and euphoria. And some of the short effects are increased heart rate, elevated blood pressure, and potentially dangerous heart rhythms. So you don't want to be seated in class and you feel that your heart is not even beating, or if it's beating, it's beating very fast compared to the normal heart rate, and you don't want to like see these effects come to reality. So what is the best thing to do? You just avoid using such drugs, because they affect us very, very bad, and they make us suffer and can even lead to death. Then I look at the methamphetamines, which are highly addictive, and they are synthetic stimulants. Okay, I looked at this, told you about the effects, the elevated blood pressure again, severe dental problems, and then with the long-term risks, it may lead to physical and mental health. So you get that you see some people just run mad on the road. Sometimes it's some medical disabilities, but some are just caused by the use of certain drugs that people got addicted to, and they can't do without these drugs. Okay, then I looked at heroin, and this is an illegal opioid. Like I said, it's very, very illegal, and it produces a very, very powerful euphoric rush, feeling of warmth and relieved pain. Okay, or reduces pain. So you find that people will use this heroin to relieve or reduce some pain in their body, but as the more they continue using this drug, they become addicted, and it may lead to short-term and long-term effects. So some short-term effects I talked about was wakefulness, like you can't stay or just maintain your sleep in a proper way. You just like wakeful and have this drowsy states. Okay, then the long-term effect I talked about addiction, collapsed veins, heart infections, and liver or kidney diseases. So you don't want a situation where you're told you need to visit the doctor, or you need to go to the hospital for certain checkups because you have a liver or lung failure. You just avoid such things. You want to be healthy, live a healthy life, and even see that you've grown and just become successful in this life. So just avoid the use of these drugs. Okay, then the next thing I will look at is this other drug here. I talked about the ecstasy one, I talked about the LSD, I looked at the psilocybin drugs, which I call the magic mushrooms. Easily just call them magic mushrooms. Like I said, some of these drugs have very, very ambiguous words, big words, complex words, but they have easier synonyms to it. Okay, so just use magic mushrooms. These ones, they just make you hallucinate. You see yourself flying, you see yourself in a certain environment that you're not even there. So we call it hallucination. Okay, so they're naturally occurring hallucinogens. Okay, and it produces some of the effects. It produces a state of consciousness and sensory perception, and the short-term effects include visual distortion, alerted thinking, and euphoria. So just avoid these drugs. We have the ketamine, I talked about that, and with this ketamine, it's a dissolvent whereby you, what I mean by a dissociative aesthetic, it's like a solvent in nature. Okay, and it also leads to hallucinations, and you just feel like you're not conscious, and then you have impaired motor function, high blood pressure, and potential risk of addiction. So the more you use this drug, the more you want to use it more often the than how you use it. Okay, so you use it once, you want to do it again, you keep doing it, and you'll reach a point where you can't do away with this drug. Okay, then the last one I talked about is inhalants. Now with inhalants, they're just substances such as the insolvent nature or aerosol sprays or nitrates. Okay, nitrates. So with these ones, I know some of you have seen some street children or people on the streets. They smoke something, or something like looks like a glue or gum. I don't really know, but you see some people will smoke some things. So these are called the inhalants. The inhalants, they can lead to euphoria, dizziness, and disinhibition. Okay, so you just feel dizzy. You're walking and you find someone is not stable when they're walking. Okay, they're not stable because of certain effects of these inhalants. Okay, then we have the short-term effects and the long-term effects here too. With the short-term effects, they include dizziness, lightheadedness, hallucinations, and I talked about hallucinations. Now with lightheadedness, you just feel light. You feel like your normal body weight. You don't feel it. You feel as if you're very light. You can even fly. Okay, but with the long-term effects, this can cause brain and nervous system damage. You don't want to damage your brain and just lose your mind and just forget things. So just focus on your life. Avoid using these drugs. Okay, so just to wind up on this one, I'll just let you know that understanding these effects and consequences of these commonly abused drugs is very, very crucial in preventing and addressing substance abuse issues. The impact of these substances on individuals can vary widely and can have serious health, social, and legal implications when abused. So if I were you, just avoid using these drugs. I have talked about the commonly abused drugs, the ones that the youth, the teens, the adults, just anyone who is using these drugs. So I've talked about their effects, and I've pointed out what these drugs are, how they are explained, how they look like. Okay, so I've talked about these commonly abused drugs, and I bet some of you have heard people talk about them, like alcohol. I know you know alcohol. You've heard people talk about it. So I was just pointing out the common drugs that we know. Okay, now I will move to something, and this is the cause of drug abuse. When I'm talking about the cause of drug abuse, like why do people abuse drugs? Okay, so I'm just looking at the why part here. Why do people abuse drugs? Why do they use these drugs? So that is what I'm going to be looking at, the cause of drug abuse. Now, talking about the cause of drug abuse, the first one is genetic predisposition. Okay, genetic predisposition. Genetic factors can make some individuals more susceptible to addiction due to family history or substance abuse. Or you find that let me just give you an example. You find that maybe in your family line, your uncle used to use this certain kind of drug, then your dad, maybe, for example, then your brother. So you find that it's genetic. It's something that has been there. Maybe your great grandparents were using this drug, believing that it helps in certain things or some traditional beliefs, so they're using that drug. Okay, so those were your grandparents. Then it was passed down to maybe your parents, your dad maybe. because they believe in a certain traditional belief, and then it was passed down to your brother or your sisters, and then lastly it's passed down to you. So that is genetic predisposition. Okay, so some family history of a substance abuse can also make you start abusing these drugs. Like I said, maybe your grandfather or your grandparents were using this because of a certain belief in the community. So it's something that has been passed down in generations, generation after generation. So even you find yourself using it because you're part of that family. Then the next one is environmental factors. Growing up in an environment where drug use is normalized or readily available can influence an individual to engage in substance abuse. Like I say, there's some countries that bang. Let me give an example of bang. There's some countries where bang is very, very legal, very, very allowed. It's very legal. But there's some countries where it's not allowed. You'll be jailed. You face some charges when found using it. So yeah. So there's some countries that allow it, there's some countries that do not allow it. So if you find yourself growing up in a country where these drugs are allowed, then definitely you will find some people using it because it's a normal thing. They don't talk about the effect. It's just a normal thing to use this drug. So environment is a very, very important factor. Some people will use these drugs because of where they've been brought up, where they've grown, and what they've found people doing as a normal thing is also normal to them. Okay, so they see nothing big or nothing big out of that. Okay, then we have mental health issues. Conditions like depression, anxiety, or trauma can lead individuals to self-medicate using drugs to cope. You find yourself that maybe, let me just give this example. Maybe you lost someone close to you, someone close to you that you loved, passed away. Now you want to relieve yourself from this stress and this thinking. So you find some individuals who use these drugs to like self-medicate themselves and just try to forget. But you can never forget. So they're just abusing this drug. So they will forget. They will use the drug to forget. And yes, it will work. For a moment, they will forget about the pain and just hallucinate and just be in their own world. But after the drug has done its work and it's over, then they come back in their normal state. So it doesn't help that much. So most people will start abusing this drug because they want to cope with the challenge they're facing. So even the mental health issues where maybe you are traumatized or you're going through depression or something is worrying you, you find yourself using these drugs because you just want to stay happy, you want to feel okay. So you find yourself not using the normal way of maybe seeing a psychologist or someone to help you. Instead, you want to use the drugs. Some people even say there's no point of telling their problems to people because people won't understand it. They don't want pity. They don't want to be told sorry, or some things that they just don't want to hear people's advice. So they will opt to use these drugs, okay, to self-medicate themselves. Then the last cause I will talk about is peer pressure. And this is very, very common among the youths. Influence from friends, social circles, or societal norms encourage drug use and can lead to experimentation and subsequent abuse. So you find that, like I said, you go to a party and you're the only one, maybe you're bored or you just want to be around your friends, but your friends are using these drugs. So they also tell you to use it and feel high like them or just be happy like them. So peer pressure. This can be your friends trying to pursue you to join them in taking these drugs or join them use this drug. So peer pressure is very, very common among the youth. And this age that we are in now, the grade that we are in now, it's very, very important to notice this. We're in grade 11 now, right? And this is where peer pressure is very high. You see your friend has something and you want to be like your friend, so you find yourself doing something because your friend are doing it, or your friend are trying to tell you to do something that you've never done, but you want to try it because you want to fit in the group. Okay, so peer pressure is one thing that leads to this drug abuse. So the last one is availability and accessibility. When these drugs can easily be gotten, it increases the likelihood of the abuse, because if you go to the shops, if you go anywhere, or your friends have it, it's very, very available, then why can't you use it? So you find yourself using it because it's it's available, you can use it.